On this episode of Newsbreak, we are chatting with Performance and Accountability Officer Kaitlyn Griffin about performance dashboards. Welcome, Kaitlyn.
Hi, Madison.
How are you doing today?
I'm great. How are you?
I am doing well, thank you. So let's kick it off with the basics. What is a performance dashboard?
So a performance dashboard is basically a snapshot in time of how we're doing compared to what goals we've set for ourselves. So what we are actually accomplishing versus what we want to accomplish.
Sure. It's a great way to gauge where we're at. So when residents go look at these dashboards, which we'll talk more about, what can they expect to see?
So residents can expect to see all kinds of information about all the departments across the city. They can see what our outputs are. So think of that as how many calls we receive or how many miles of right-of-way we're mowing, how many service tickets we get in, and then how many of those we complete, how many of those calls we pick up and answer, that kind of information.
Sure.
And then they can also see more of the performance-driven information of the percentage of completion towards a project or, for example, communications. We track the downloads of podcasts. We see how many people are actually listening to the information we're putting out. So that's kind of all the information that you can expect to see on the performance dashboard page. Not only the department information, but citywide, our progress towards the commission-adopted strategic plan.
Yes. Okay. Gotcha. So how often is this updated? Is the data updated?
So we have information updated on different frequencies. So we have everything from monthly information, we have quarterly information, annual, and some even biannual. So things that don't change as frequently, we don't update as frequently.
Right. So how are the metrics selected? How do you pick which things go into the dashboards and what determines one thing more relevant than the other?
So we start off by looking at a department's core service areas, so what they're really focused on in serving our community. We go from there and we look at how do we show that we're accomplishing that or we are serving our community in that way. So we kind of take a step back, look at the bigger picture, and see what makes the most sense. Sometimes we start tracking something and we realize that the number doesn't really show what you want it to show.
Sure.
And we'll start to pivot and adjust that. So, for example, we started by having a metric for communications that was to create a Northport University program. So that's great. We accomplished it. There's not really a metric anymore for that measure. So now we're moving and we're pivoting and we're tracking how many people graduate from the program. What's the satisfaction rate of the program? So we morph it over time to make sure that we're really following our progress and focused on the results of what we're trying to do.
Right. You don't want to be tracking things that are just kind of arbitrary and not useful to both here at the city and to the public.
Right.
So you mentioned this before, but to dive in a little bit deeper, these dashboards also help to track progress toward strategic goals, and there's been a lot of discussion about it very, very recently, at least this week as we record. So are there specific goals that are being monitored, or how is that tracked or set?
So there are. So each of our 7 strategic plan pillars have a dashboard, and in there you'll see the priorities that are established by the City Commission, and then you'll see below that the key performance indicators that staff has developed that show our progress towards the priority. So we track those over time and use those as our discussions in strategic planning to show where are we succeeding and where might we need to focus things a little bit more in the coming years so we can tailor our conversations, and it really becomes relevant in budget discussions and conversations.
Sure, yeah.
That was a really big topic at strategic planning as we worked through things of how are we going to fund this, how is this program performing, and where do we go from here?
Right. And I know that the strategic goals kind of cover the gamut of all departments, like safe community,
Yes.
right? And there's an economic-based one, an environmental one.
Yes.
So I know a lot of people have a particular goal that is set for their department.
Yes.
So.
And for the community, if there's a certain area that you're interested in seeing how we're doing, you can go to those specific pillars and see the information in real time. Now that might be, again, on an annual update or a monthly update. It just depends on what you're looking at and what you'd like to see.
Right. And it all is kept updated. It just might not be like, that day updated. Yeah, gotcha. So how do these dashboards directly benefit the residents? Why should they take the time to look at it? And are there things in there that would be relevant to their daily lives?
So for residents, this really helps us show the work that we're doing for our residents on a daily basis. Again, some of the metrics might not be daily, but the work towards them is happening every single day. Mm-hmm. And we want to make sure that we're being transparent and accountable in that way. We set goals for ourselves in all of these metrics annually. It's part of our budgeting process, it's published, and these dashboards help to show if we are in fact meeting those goals that we set for ourselves or if we're not. And if we're not, we as staff look at them and question, what do we need to do to reach the goal? Or why aren't we reaching the goal? It's the start of a conversation and then an action plan that we develop, and we can start to target those lower performing areas. And for our residents, that in turn means that we're becoming more effective as your local government, and we are truly doing the best that we can for you.
Right, because you aren't just going to, if you're not performing well in a particular section, we're not just removing it because it doesn't look good.
Right.
The goal is to work up and make it better.
And we have that conversation a lot of, there are going to be red needs improvement areas, and it is okay for that to happen, but we need to have honest conversations about why that's red and why we are seeing that and what we can do to make it better. Because at the end of the day, we're all here to serve our local community, and we want to do that in the best way possible.
Definitely. Yeah. And could it be sometimes that if it's in the red after discussion and analyzing, that it could just be something that's not relevant to track, or could it show that it's just not the right thing to have on a performance dashboard? Not remove it because you want to avoid making it better, but just that it's...
It could be.
Yeah.
Yeah, we could find that metric just isn't relevant to our actual operations anymore because business practices change too.
Right.
Next week we have Acela coming online. That's online permitting. That's a total game changer for our development services department. Some of their metrics in turn might have to shift and change, going from a manual process that's physically sometimes having to track something on an Excel sheet to now being able to run a report automatically. Yeah. That can change how we track things internally.
It could change a lot of the items.
There's that kind of business practice change, industry standards change. For example, the police department will be having to shift their reporting from one classification to another. That's going to shift some things on how we've been tracking to how we're going to track. So things shift, things change, and we evolve to meet the needs.
So I know we talked about departments monitoring this and making different sections better based on the reporting, but how else do the departments use the data internally, or how do you guys work through them?
So at least quarterly, we meet with departments. The city leadership meets, and we have departments grouped with similar departments. So, for example, public safety, we've got the police department and the fire department come together, and we sit down and we go through their metrics, and we talk about how we're doing and where we might see some challenges, where we see some opportunities. And it's a really great opportunity for the entire group to celebrate successes, because we do want to celebrate those, and then also have the conversations of what can we do to do better. Right. And also we talk about, are our targets correct? Mm-hmm. Sometimes if you have a target and say it's complete this 80% of the time, that sounds great. But if our actuals are, we're completing it 98% of the time consistently, our 80% target needs to be adjusted. We need to be shooting for better than where we're at. And continuous improvement is really the name of the game when we talk about our performance.
Right, because you can't be like, our goal is to answer one phone call and then just absolutely crush it each time. It has to be like feasible and like competitive with where you want to get to. We want to
have those SMART goals where we're trying to challenge ourselves, but in a realistic way.
Right.
We don't want to set ourselves up for failure, but we do want to improve.
On something to work toward.
Right.
That's attainable.
Yes.
Right. So after talking all about this, it all sounds really cool. Now, where can they find these dashboards?
So you can find these at any time on our city's website. If you go to northportfl.gov/transparency, you'll see a link for performance dashboards. There you'll find all the department dashboards. You'll find the strategic plan dashboards. And you'll also find our financial transparency page.
Sounds pretty transparent to me.
We do our best.
Yeah, absolutely. So is there anything else that you wanted to add, Kaitlyn, about the performance dashboards?
Just that they're always available. We take pride in making this information available to our citizens, visitors, our employees. We use them internally, externally. They're just a really great resource. And another thing is, if you are ever curious about what exactly a department does, it's a great place to go and look and see the work that they do.
Right.
You can get an idea of what their subject area is focused on, and it gives you an insight into your local government and everything that we work towards every day.
It sounds like you can find out a lot of stuff on this one page, and we know that you put a lot of hard work into it, so we thank you, Kaitlyn.
Thank you. Well, we have some great departments that feed me all their information, so I appreciate everything that they do.
Yes, definitely. So thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate it. I hope you guys go check out these dashboards, and we will catch you all on the next Newsbreak.